Okay, welcome. This is the ArcGIS10 introduction. These are the basics to the interface. This is part one of 4 that I intend to do. Basically, this is designed to get you up and started with ArcMap, whether you're moving from the 9.3 version up to a 10, or whether you're just starting out with a 10. And the way I'm laying these out is I'm going to have the 4 sessions when we'll look at the menus and the windows and the tools and the different tables and things like that in each of the 4 sessions, adding a little bit more each time. So that hopefully by the time that we've finished with all 4 pieces, that you'll have a pretty good understanding of the interface of ArcGIS and how to start using it to do your analysis or to create your maps or whatever it is you'd like to do. Now, first let me just explain what I've got up here. This is pretty much a default layout screen-wise. We have the menus across the top. You can see the file, edit, view, bookmarks, that type of thing. All these menus across the top. And then down below we have a toolbar, the first one. And this is called the standard toolbar, and it contains a lot of buttons that are basically just shortcuts to some of those menu options. The next toolbar down is called the Tools toolbar, and this has navigational tools and tools that impact of course, the mouse function within the window environment within this view window, and allows you to look at your data and pan around and get information and stuff like that. And then we have what might be called sub-windows, or windows within the ArcMap window. And then one of these is this table of contents over here on the left side. That is actually a window that can be floating, or in this case it's docked. If I grab the title bar and click on it and drag it, it becomes a floating palette type of window, floating window. And you notice these little blue diamond shapes around here. Those are docking points. And if I go to the left side here, I can dock it that way against the left side of the view. If I go here, I can dock it across the bottom and that type of thing. So normally I would dock it over here on the left, is where we sort of expect to see it. Now, besides being docked, we can also pull the pin on this auto hide push pin. Now when it's vertical like this, it's pinned and it stays in position. If I pull it and out, then it becomes a tab, which if I go over to the tab name, you see how the push pin is now horizontal. It's been pulled, and the window will open up, allow me to make any kind of selections and choices I want to make, and then it will close when I move away from it. So if you have a reasonably decent machine, that takes no time at all to come back and forth. If it's a problem, just go ahead and dock them and push pin and auto lock them in place so they don't auto hide. Okay, so that's a window there, table of contents window. So we have our view, we have some windows, and we have our toolbars. Now, let's just look at the menus. I just wanted to hit upon 3 menus today. The file menu, very easy one to follow. If we left click on the menu, we get our choices for new and open. These are opening up either a brand new map document or an existing map document. And of course, if you press open, you're going to get a browser window and want to go navigate for a map document. And notice at the bottom here, it says MXD for the type. And MXD is the extension given to an ArcMap map document. An ArcMap document does not contain the data. Okay, it contains essentially information on where to find the data, what data you want in the map document, how the data is being displayed, all the different layers that are in the table of contents over here, how they're symbolized, what windows are open, what toolbars are turned on, what extensions you're using. All that information is stored in a file, which is essentially the map document, but none of the data. And you can create these map documents very easy. You can go to File, and you can say New, and it starts a brand new one. Or you can, and you can also say save and save the current one. You can say save as and save as a new name, that type of thing. And down below we can open any of the more recent map documents that we've been working with. The other menu that I want to look at is Windows. Now we've already played a little bit with one of the windows, which is Table of Contents, but these allow you to get to some other windows like Magnifier and Viewer, which we'll talk about a little later. But right now we're just looking at Table of Contents and Catalog window. Now there's another window called Catalog. If I click that open, it pops up over here because that's where it was last docked. And it also has a push pin for auto hiding or not. The catalog allows me to look at my data. If I left click on this geodatabase right here that's highlighted, and there's a visibility box here that expands it or contracts it, and here are the feature classes, and these are the same feature classes I have in my table of contents, and that's, I can view my spatial data in that form. Allows me to rename it, allows me to copy it, move it into another folder, allows me to export it to give it to somebody else in another format. All types of things I can do in the catalog window. Alright, now if these windows disappear by accident, you hit the plus sign, they're not collapsed, then you can come back to the Windows menu to open them up, or like everything in ArcGIS, there's multiple ways. There are shortcut buttons in our standard toolbar that will open them up for you. Just click on them. There's one for, and see how we get little tips, catalog, search, and table of contents, and you can open them up that way. And lastly, I want to look at the help menu. If we click on the help menu, there's a couple options. We're going to look at ArcGIS Desktop Help for now. This is the one that's loaded onto your hard drive when you install ArcGIS. And this is the interface. We have couple tabs over here on the left called Contents, Favorites, and Search. And in Contents, they're broken down into what's new, getting started. So if you're just getting started into the GIS, this is a good place to start out. They talk about what GIS is in general, and about maps and different ways of looking at data. Then they go into how it's based on layers. And then finally down below we can get into what is ArcGIS, and they'll talk about the ArcGIS system for desktop, which is the one we're looking at right now, and the different extensions that are available. Okay, and then they also have ArcGIS tutorials, so that you can go into doing any kind of tutorial that you like. Different ones available here, and a lot more help is also available on this resource center, which we'll talk about during another session. If you're not sure where the information is that you want to pull out of here, you can use the search tab up here in the top far right, and either search for something like table of contents, and you get something like this, use the table of contents, and this gives you a way to say, oh, that's the table of contents, these are what the different items are. We have different ways of looking at the table of contents. We have this thing called a data frame. We have layers. We have symbology or legends, and we can collapse these and so forth. And you can see all of this inside of this table of contents help page. And if you see something you like, you say, geez, there's a lot of information here. I need to be able to come back to this over and over and over again. You can make it a favorite by clicking on your favorite tab, and come right down here, and you can either rename it, which I would suggest since the current topic doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot to me, and you could simply name it Table of Contents, which I've already done, and then say Add. So TLC, Table of Contents, let's do it that way. Okay, so we can go to any one of these. So then if you want to look at Table of Contents info again, just double click on your favorites, it'll take you right to the page. Pretty standard for a lot of the online help now. Okay, let's close that. So those are the three menus I want to look at. We talked about the windows a little bit. We have this data view window right here. We have our table of contents window. We have our catalog window. The other one we haven't talked about too much is the attribute window, which I'll get to in a minute. But first I want to look at some tools. Start getting us to look at the map a little bit. Okay, toolbar. This is the standard, this is the tools toolbar. And there's some navigational tools here. Now, as we get out further, there's some tools for making selections and identifying some other more unique tools. But right now we're going to look at these tools on the left side, which are the navigational tools. And the plus sign does with the magnifying glass is very obvious, I think. It allows you to zoom in. If you just click once, it'll zoom in a fixed amount. What we want to do is click and drag, and it'll draw you a box around the area of interest. And you can zoom into that. And the minus on the magnifying glass zooms out. The hand sign is a pan. Just grab it and pan around. And the panning does not change the scale. And you can check that out up here. This is where you would find the scale of your current view. If you want a specific scale, there's a little drop down list right here. Just click on that and you can pick a standard scale, or you can customize that list if you want to. So if you want to look at the standard scale, say maybe 500,000, that's a 500,000 map. If we want to look at, well, what's a 750 scale? There we go. So we're seeing it at 1 to 750,000 scale as we pan around. Over here to the right of the pan tool is a couple others for fixed zoom in and fixed zoom out. That just incrementally steps you up and down about 10%. And then there's this tool here, which if I do something nice like that, we'll go into Ithaca. And if I'm zoomed in and I want to go just step back, I can hit the blue arrow and it'll go back to the previous extent. And it'll keep going back. And I can go back and forth, different extents that way by using the blue arrows. And then finally, invariably, this is going to happen to you somewhere along the way. You're going to be in so far you have no idea where you are. Now, in that case, what you can do is you can hit this little tool right here called Full Extent, and it will zoom you all the way out to the full extent of all your data sets. Now, I'm going to do that now, and you're going to see an interesting effect. Now, what you're seeing is another feature of ArcGIS 10, and that is something called a base map over here. I have added a base map to my normal data sets to give a little bit of background information, a little bit of context. And I grabbed this base map right from the web, and I'll show you later how to do that. But when I went to the full extent, of course, it included the base map. So that's not really where I want to be right now. So instead I'll hit this, go back to previous zoom, and I will instead use another option. And the option I'm going to use is within the table of contents and is attached to the layers that are in there. Now in the table of contents, these are called layers. Cities layers, counties layers, base map layers, and they're inside this data frame that's called layers. So if I right click on, say, a layer in here, I will get a context menu. There are many context menus associated with many components of ArcMap. And what you want to do is, if you really don't know what to do, perhaps, go to the thing that you want to modify or that you want to work with and right click on it and see what happens. There's probably a context menu there. In this case, I want a context menu for that specific layer, and I can use the zoom to option for that layer. If I zoom to that, I zoom to my counties layer, and I see my base map in the background, which we now know covers the whole world. But we are only looking at a very small portion of it. And I'll show you later how you can go out to the web with ArcGIS 10 and grab those base maps free from ArcGIS Online. Okay, so how do we control how things look in here? We do that within this table of contents. We can use our zoom in tool, zoom into here a little bit more, and then we can see our table of contents. If I click on the check for cities, I turn them off. Click on the check for counties, I turn them off. Click on the check for base map, it turns off. That's how we can control visibility of different layers. If I want to see, well, I see counties are drawn in red, but I don't see it over here. If I want to see the legend for the layer, I click on the plus sign to the left to expand it out. To the left for cities, I can see cities are drawn like this. Counties are drawn as open boxes with red borders. And the base map is just drawn. There's no control on that. It's actually an image. Now, the other thing we want to be able to do is add data. We want to be able to add data into here as well. So let's see how we can add some data. So if we go up to the Add Data button, it says big yellow layer symbol with a plus on it, and you click on that, and you'll get a browser button, a browser dialog, and that dialog will allow you to go anywhere to any connection that you have, any folder, and you can see how I have all these different folder connections, and I can go to my default connection and pick out a data set to add. In this case, let's add our roads data. So we have roads, and notice it came in, it didn't come in turned on because that's a certain option I have set, so I turned on the roads. Now here are the road data sets right here. Here are the counties on top. Roads are a funny kind of color. Let's change that a little bit. If I just right click on the symbol, I can change its color very easily. So maybe we should make the roads kind of a gray. Well, that's may not have been a good choice. Let's go for black. There we go. There are the roads, and they're a little confusing because there's a base map of roads underneath. So we can actually turn them off now if we want. And so we have the roads in black, we have the counties here in red, and we have the cities on there. And notice where it put the roads. It did two things. It gave it a color by default, a symbology by default. Because it was line data, it made it a straight line, solid, and gave it a random color. And it put it between cities and counties. Now the reason it did that is because ArcMap, if you've been noticing, it draws from the bottom up. It lays down that base map, it then draws the counties, it then draws the roads now, and it then drew the cities on top. And that's because things like base map, that's an image. It's solid. It's going to block out anything underneath it. Counties is a polygon. Now polygons can be filled or they can be hollow. This one happens to be hollow. But it could have been filled, in which case it wouldn't want it above the roads. They put roads above polygons, and then they put cities above roads. So there's a hierarchy in the display of these feature classes. And ArcGIS will try and maintain that and put it in at its highest possible location without damaging the hierarchy. You can, of course, move it around. So let me show you how you do that. So say we want to add another data set, the towns, in here. So instead of going up and using this tool, I'm going to go over and use catalog. And in the catalog window, one of the nice things about it is I can find these data sets like the roads and the towns, but I can do more than that. I can just bring them in, and I can either drop them right here in the view, in which case it will do the same thing it did with the roads and put it in by default. So let me see where it goes. Boom. We'll do that, and it put it right in here. It put it as high on the hierarchy as it could without interfering with line data, and I click it on. So there's my town data set. I've lost my counties. If I turn off roads, you see I just have towns and the cities. I've lost my counties, and that's because towns is covering them up. Remember, it draws from the bottom up. So I want to reorder this. It's very easy to reorder things in the table of contents. You left click on the layer name and click and drag it wherever you want. So I'll put it under counties, and notice it's blocked out the base map. So we might just well turn the base map off now. So now we have towns, we have the county layer laying on top of it as a hollow polygon, we have the road layer we can add in there, and we have cities. Maybe we should change the road color yet again. Something like Okay. The way, again, I'm getting to changing those colors is just to right click on the symbol and I get a little color palette I can pick and choose from. There's much more in symbology we can get into, and we will later. Okay, so that's really how we can move things around. We can use our catalog. We can navigate our tree over here and find our data set, add data, pan and zoom. The only other thing I want to cover before we close off is the attribute table. These data that we have on our screen here in our view is just showing the spatial location of things, the location of the city, the bounding area of the county or the township. It's not showing us any of the background information, the data associated with it. That's in an attribute table. So let's look at the one for cities. And the way you can look at the attribute table for a layer is you go to the layer and you right click on its name, and you get that context menu where we were able to zoom to the layer for counties. In this case, and also it allows us to remove the layer if we're tired of it, don't need it, or to copy it if we want to know the copy of it. And a little later I'll show you the advantages of copying a layer. But down, a little further down is Open Attribute Table. If we click on that, we'll get an attribute table opening up for this layer. Now this is the data that's attached to every feature in that feature class. So in this case it's cities, the layer's name, the table's name right down here, it's cities. If I click on any one of these, let's pick up Utica, should be visible, here it is over here in the far right. There's Utica. Notice I have a record here with data associated with a feature class here. There's a one-to-one relationship for every feature in your feature class layer. There's going to be a record in your feature class attribute table. Across the top we have field names, city name, city state number, elevation, population associated with each of the features. And then going down, we have the individual records. So if we go down a little further, Syracuse is here, there's Syracuse, and then it'll be Auburn, Geneva, and so forth. So every one of these records relates to a feature class, and you can't have one without the other, and if you delete one, the other will go. And this attribute table again can be docked. It can be just like any of the other windows, and it can also, we can remove our selection, and there is also an table options menu, or you can think of it as a context menu for tables, where you can do many things, including select by these attributes. You can add fields. So remember, these are fields you can add out this way. You can't touch these. Object and shape are locked down by the system, but anything out this way you can modify to your heart's content and recalculate and so forth, or add new fields, or export the data out, or control how it appears, things like that. And we'll get into those a little bit later. So basically that's the first introductory lesson on just getting around ArcGIS map and figuring out where some of the things are located and how to get started. On the next session we'll look a little bit into bookmarks, how to do some layouts, how to select elements, a little bit more on where this data is coming from that we see in here in these table of contents, how we can find out where it's coming from, and a little bit more about a geodatabase, and then finally, what do you do when you have more than one attribute table open, and how we can rearrange those and things like that.